It's Daniel, aka Danny Gossip Girl. I've got the scoop on Bravo and Blinds. Let's go. When the stars come out to play, you know where to stay. Tune into the buzz, it's the talk of the day. From Bravo shows to the latest celeb spree, we've got the tea, come sip it with me. Danny Gossip Girl, pop culture exposé.
In the second episode of Pop Culture Exposé, we are turning up the heat as we dive into the most iconic moments of the 1960s and 1970s. Think counterculture, rock and roll, and disco fever. We will also be peeling back the layers of some of the wildest blinds spun by Auntie, with none other than Elvis Presley at the center of the drama. And to help me unpack all the intrigue, I will be joined by the incredible Nathalie Rogers, also known as Femme Tarot, who's ready to share some insight you won't want to miss. Get ready for another thrilling deep dive into pop culture's juiciest secrets. If you love deep dives, debunking juicy blinds, and all things celebrity gossip, then you need to follow and review Pop Culture Exposé, your new obsession. Oh, and if you're catching us on YouTube, you are in for a treat because there are tons of visuals to paint the picture as we break down the truth behind the headlines. Trust me, you won't want to miss a second. So go on, hit that subscribe button, and let's get into it.
Ooh, what's happening in Beverly Hills? Danny Gossip Girl, pop culture exposé.
The swinging 60s, a decade where everything seemed to turn upside down, where the old ways were challenged and the world embraced the wild, the free, and the rebellious. This was one time of explosive creativity, cultural revolution, and unforgettable icons. Ready for a trip through one of the most vibrant eras of pop culture history? Well, let's dive into the groovy, thrilling, and sometimes chaotic moments that define the 1960s. It is February 1964, and something extraordinary is happening across the Atlantic. Four young lads from Liverpool, with their mop-top haircuts and infectious tunes, are about to make history when the...
You know something very nice happened, and the Beatles got a great kick out of it. Just received the letter, they did, from Elvis Presley and Colonel Tom Parker, wishing them a tremendous success tonight.
Close your eyes and out this.
When the Beatles landed in America and appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show, the world stopped. Girls screamed, boys imitated, and suddenly everyone wanted a piece of the Fab Four. With hits like I Wanna Hold Your Hand and She Loves You, yeah, yeah, yeah. The Beatles didn't just top the charts, they became a cultural phenomenon. They weren't just musicians, they were symbols of a new generation, ready to break free from the old and embrace the new. The British invasion had begun, and it wasn't just the Beatles. Bands like the Rolling Stones, The Who, and The Kinks followed in their wake, bringing them a wave of music that would forever change the landscape of rock and roll. Picture this. It is August 1969, and 500,000 people, yes, 500,000 people, are gathered on a farm in upstate New York. The air is thick with a secret scent of freedom, and the stage is set for a musical event that would become legendary. Woodstock wasn't just a music festival, it was the embodiment of the counterculture movement. a place where peace, love, and music reigned supreme. Over 3 days, icons like Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, and The Who performed for a sea of free-spirited souls. Hendrix's rendition of the Star-Spangled Banner was mind-blowing mix of patriotism and protest, a perfect symbol of the era's conflicting emotions. Woodstock wasn't just a concert, it was a statement, a declaration that the youth of the 60s were here to change the world, one song at a time. Let's, though, go back to 1967 to the streets of San Francisco's Haight-Ashbury's district. It's the summer of love. The city is buzzing with energy. Thousands of young people dressed in tie-dye and flowers have flocked to this counterculture mecca, seeking freedom, peace, and a new way of life. The soundtrack to this revolution, psychedelic rock. Bands like Jefferson Airplane, The Grateful Dead, and The Doors were forefront of this musical movement and was a mind-expanding as the substances being consumed. Songs like Somebody to Love and Light My Fire weren't just hits, they were anthems of generations searching for meaning beyond the material. But the summer of love wasn't just about the music. It was about a new way of thinking, a rejection of the establishment, and an embrace of love as a powerful force for change. It was a fleeting moment of idealism that captured the world's imagination and left an indelible mark on the cultural landscape. The 1960s weren't just about peace, love, and rock and roll. They were also a time of intense social upheaval. As the civil rights movement gained momentum, music became a powerful tool for change. Artists like Sam Cooke, with his soul-stirring anthem, A Change Is Gonna Come, and Bob Dylan with Blowin' in the Wind, gave voice to struggles and hopes for a generation fighting for equality. But it wasn't just the lyrics that made an impact. It was the way music brought people together. Motown, with its irresistible blend of soul and pop, produced hits that crossed racial lines and brought Black artists like the Supremes, Marvin Gaye, and Stevie Wonder into the mainstream. Music became a unifying source, a way to bridge divides and inspire action. And then there was the March in Washington in 1963, where Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his iconic I Have a Dream speech. Mahalia Jackson's powerful rendition of How I Got Over, and Dylan's performance of Only a Pawn in Their Game turned the event into more than just a protest. It was a moment of cultural significance where music and social justice collided in a way that would resonate for decades. I have goosebumps as I'm saying it. The swinging 60s also saw the rise of new cultural icons, figures who embodied the rebellious spirit of the era. One such figure was James Bond, the suave secret agent who made his big screen debut in 1962's Dr. No. Bond wasn't just a movie character, he was a symbol of a new kind of hero, cool, sophisticated, and ready to take on the world with a martini in one hand and a Walther PPK in the other. But while Bond was thrilling audiences, real-life rebels were making their mark too. Muhammad Ali, with his lightning-fast fists and razor-sharp wit, became a global icon, not just for his prowess in the ring, but for his outspoken stance against the Vietnam War. And then there was Andy Warhol, the pop artist who turned Campbell's soup cans and Marilyn Monroe's face into high art, challenging the very definition of what art could be. These icons were more than just famous faces. They were symbols of a world in flux, where the old rules no longer applied and anything seemed possible. The 1960s were also marked by profound tragedy. The assassination of key figures like John F. Kennedy, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., and Robert F. Kennedy sent shockwaves through the nation and the world. These were more than just political murders. They were moments that shattered the idealism of the era and left a deep scar on the collective consciousness, even today. When JFK was assassinated in 1963, it was as if a bright future he had promised was suddenly thrown into darkness. The loss of Martin Luther King Jr. in 1968 was a devastating blow to the civil rights movement, and the death of RFK later that year felt like the final nail in the coffin of the American dream. The 60s were definitely a time of incredible hope, but also of heartbreaking loss. The country really matured then. But it wasn't all gloom and doom. The 60s also saw humanity reach for the stars. Literally. The space race between the United States and the Soviet Union captivated the world, culminating in Apollo 11 moon landing in 1969, when Neil Armstrong took that first step onto the lunar surface and uttered the words,
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. Roger, Tranquility. We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot. Okay, Neil, we can see you coming down the ladder now. I'm at the foot of the ladder. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
This wasn't just a technological achievement. It was a moment that united people across the globe, a symbol of what humanity could achieve when we worked together. The moon landing was fitting onto a decade that had seen so much change, so much conflict, and so much progress. The swinging 60s were a whirlwind of music, culture, and revolution, a decade that challenged the status quo and laid the groundwork for the world we know today. It was a time of great highs and devastating lows, of unforgettable icons and seismic shifts in society. And as the decade came to a close, one thing was clear. The 60s had changed everything, and there was no going back. The 1970s, a decade of dazzling lights, funky grooves, and cinematic spectacles that took the world by storm. From the pulsating beats of disco to the adrenaline-pumping thrill of blockbuster movies, the 70s were a time when pop culture exploded in color, sound, and larger-than-life moments. Ready to boogie down the memory lane and relive the highlights of this unforgettable era? Let's get groovy and dive into the pop culture moments of the disco era and blockbusters. The year is 1977. And in the heart of New York, something magical is happening. A line of glamorous partygoers stretches down the block, waiting to be granted into the most exclusive nightclub in the world. Studio 54. Inside, under the twinkling disco ball, the air is electric, the music is thumping, the dance floor is packed, and the night is just getting started. Disco wasn't just a genre of music, it was a way of life with its infectious beats and glittering style. Disco became the soundtrack of the decade. Hits like Staying Alive by the Bee Gees, Donna Summer's I Feel Love, and Chic's Le Freak dominated the airways, and everyone from the suburbs to the city was shaking their groove. Studio 54 wasn't just a club, it was the epicenter of the disco culture, where celebrities, socialites, and regular folks alike danced the night away in a haze of lights, decadence, and a lot more party favors. But disco wasn't just about music, it was about freedom, expression, and breaking down social barriers. On the dance floor, everyone was equal, united by the beats. The disco era was a glittering, glamorous escape, a celebration of life in its most vibrant form. Speaking of disco, no single moment captured the essence of the era quite like Saturday Night Fever. Picture it. John Travolta, clad in that iconic white suit, striding down a Brooklyn street to the rhythm of the Bee Gees' Staying Alive. With his move, his swagger, and that unforgettable soundtrack, Travolta wasn't just playing a character, he was embodying the spirit of the 70s. The music wasn't just a box office hit, it was a cultural phenomenon. Suddenly, everyone wanted to hit the dance floor and show off their best moves. Disco was no longer just a fad, it was a full-blown craze. Saturday Night Fever turned Travolta into a superstar and cemented disco's place in Pop Culture Hall of Fame. The soundtrack, with its hit like Night Fever and More Than a Woman, became one of the biggest selling albums of all time, and disco fever spread like wildfire. But it wasn't just the dance floor that was heating up the 70s. In 1975, a young director named Steven Spielberg unleashed a monster that would change cinema forever. That monster was Jaws, and it was hungry. With its menacing theme and terrifying suspense, Jaws wasn't just a movie, it was an event. People lined up around the block to see the great white shark terrorize the small town of Amity Island. The film's gripping tension, combined with Spielberg's masterful direction, made Jaws the first true summer blockbuster, a film that defines a new era of big budget, high stakes cinema. Audiences were hooked, and the film's success paved the way for the blockbusters era that followed. The summer movie season became a time for thrill seekers, and Jaws set the stage for that world. Come next, an even bigger culture phenomenon that would take the world to a galaxy far, far away. In 1977 and across the country, fans are flocking to theaters for a movie unlike anything they've ever seen. The lights dim, the iconic opening crawl begins, and suddenly they are transported to a galaxy far, far away. This is Star Wars, and nothing will ever be the same. George Lucas' space opera wasn't just a film, it was a pop culture juggernaut with its epic battles, unforgettable characters, and groundbreaking special effects. Star Wars captured the imaginations of millions. Kids and adults alike fell in love with Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia and Darth Vader. Well, maybe you love to hate him. The Force became part of a cultural lexicon, and everyone wanted to be a Jedi. Star Wars wasn't just a movie, it was a movement. Merchandising exploded with action figures, posters, and toys flying off the shelves. Fans lined up to see it again and again, making it one of the highest grossing films of all time. And the impact didn't stop there. The film spawned sequels, spin-offs, an entire universe of stories that continue to captivate audience to this day. While disco ruled the dance floors and blockbusters dominated the box office, a different kind of revolution was brewing in the underground music scene. Enter punk rock, a raw, rebellious genre that flipped the music industry on its head. The year is 1976, and in the Grammy clubs of New York and London, bands like the Ramones, the Sex Pistols, and the Clash are igniting a movement that's loud, fast, and unapologetically in your face. Punk wasn't about flashy production or polished performances. It was about raw energy and a DIY attitude. The Sex Pistols' Anarchy in the UK wasn't just a song. It was a battle cry for the disaffected youth, a rejection of the establishment, and a call for rebellion. The Clash's London Calling fused punk with reggae and rockabilly, creating a sound that was revolutionary as the lyrics themselves. Punk wasn't just a music genre, it was a cultural statement with its torn clothes, spiked hair, and anti-establishment ethos. Punk rock challenged the status quo and inspired a generation of misfits to find their voice. It was loud, it was brash, and it left an indelible mark on music and fashion that's still felt today. As the 70s drew to a close, not everyone was grooving to disco beat. In 1979, a backlash was brewing, and it all came to a head at Comiskey Park in Chicago on what would be known as Disco Demolition Night. A local DJ named Steve Dahl, who despised disco, invited fans to bring their disco records to a baseball game for public demolition, which started as a stunt, quickly turned into chaos. Thousands of records were blown up on the field, and the crowd, fueled by the anti-disco sentiment, stormed the field, leading to a full-blown riot.
50,000 people, the largest crowd of the season, showed up at Chicago's Comiskey Park for the twilight doubleheader between the White Sox and the Detroit Tigers. 15,000 others had to be turned away. Many had come for Disco Demolition Night, a promotional gimmick. Between games, as planned, a huge box containing thousands of disco records was blown up. The rest was unplanned. Fans stormed out onto the field in the thousands. Disco records were hurled like frisbees. Bonfires were set. Bottles were thrown. The batting cage was torn down and destroyed. Fistfights broke out. White Sox players had to be locked in their clubhouse for their own protection. The melee lasted an hour and a half and resulted in 39 arrests and a few minor injuries. The baseball fans missed the second game. It was canceled. The White Sox lost it. It was forfeited to Detroit.
The event symbolized the growing disdain for disco and marked the beginning of its decline. By the end of the decade, disco was on its way out, making way for musical movements like new wave and post-punk. But even as disco faded, its influence remained. The music, the fashion, and the spirit of the disco era continued to inspire and be celebrated long after the last glittering ball stopped spinning. And finally, no trip through the 70s would be complete without a nod to the classic phenomenon that captured the hearts of midnight moviegoers everywhere. The year is 1975, and a bizarre genre-bending film called Rocky Horror Picture Show has just been released. It's campy, it's outrageous, and it's unlike anything we've ever seen before. Rocky Horror didn't make much of a splash at first, but something incredible happened. It found its audience in the midnight movie circuit. Fans started coming in costume, shouting lines back at the screen, and turning every screening into a raucous, interactive experience. The film's catchy songs like Time Warp and Sweet Transvestite became anthems of the weird and wonderful. Rocky Horror wasn't just a movie. It was an experience, a celebration of individuality and eccentricity. It became the ultimate cult classic, proving that sometimes the strangest and most unconventional ideas are the ones that resonate the most. The 1970s were a decade of extremes, glamorous and gritty, mainstream and underground, wild and unforgettable. From the glitzy heights of Studio 54 to the rebellious roar of punk rock, from the thrilling escapism of Star Wars to the cult following of Rocky Horror, the 70s were a time of cultural upheaval and creative explosion. It was a decade that dared to be different, to push boundaries, and to leave a lasting impact on the world of pop culture. And as the disco ball dimmed and the credits rolled on the blockbuster, one thing was certain: the 70s were a time like no other, and their legacy would dance on forever.
The gossip blinds, catch the news, don't get left behind. Don't miss this. Don't miss this.
All right, get cozy for some wild tales because we're diving into the crazy days and nights and some of their craziest blinds from the 1960s and 1970s, Hollywood's golden age of scandals. Not golden age of movies, but definitely golden age of scandals. The 1960s and 1970s were an era of revolution, not just culturally, but in the hidden lives of the rich and famous. Auntie, the former anonymous lawyer behind Crazy Days and Nights, because now he is known to be John Nelson of Indio, California, not really an entertainment lawyer, has spun out tales involving everyone from rock stars to movie icons. A reoccurring theme? The public saw the glamour, but behind the scenes, it was a chaotic world of secret affairs, addictions, and mystery. We have blinds of the Rat Pack, where Frank Sinatra ran Hollywood like a mob boss, using his influence to keep all manner of illicit activities hushed up. Then there's Marilyn Monroe, rumored to have been entangled with political figures and facing tragic downward spirals before her sudden, suspicious death. Bridget Bardot, Mick Jagger, and more were frequent subject of these blinds, always dancing on the edge of fame and ruin. When it comes to Elvis Presley, Crazy Days and Nights paints a particular picture far from the innocent king of rock and roll image. Behind closed doors, Elvis wasn't just the king of music. He was reportedly involved in wild affairs, which we know to be true given all of the books that are out there, autobiographies, documentaries, movies, and whatnot. But there was one with a famous singer who supposedly managed to keep it all under wraps. There are rumors of covert government dealings, sketchy last-minute phone calls, and an intense network of friends and handlers around Elvis who controlled what was said about him, even after his death. All of which I honestly believe to be true. But Elvis' relationship, both personal and professional, were supposedly manipulated to maintain his clean-cut persona. The blinds even suggest that a lot of his health issues were exaggerated to hide something much darker. Could it be a cover-up? We may never know, but it adds fuel to the legend of Elvis's final years. There are going to be a couple of blinds that we touch on that NT John Nelson has covered on Elvis. Some of them are extremely, extremely long and just honestly confusing. So I'm not going to read them, but definitely you can search the titles in a Google search and read them verbatim yourself, although I don't recommend driving traffic to his site. But one of the first ones is called the Hymn Blind, and the hymn has 4 M's. That's important to point out later. But it's the Hymn Blind, the eternal order of Elvis Presley's pallbearers. And to summarize this blind that came from a while ago, now buckle up for the wild ride that is the internal order of Elvis Presley's pallbearers. A hymn blind famous for being long-winded, detailed, and filled with insider knowledge. This tale isn't just about Elvis. It's about a secret club of Hollywood insiders who were so close to him that they became his unofficial pallbearers after his death. These people allegedly knew everything about his life, from his health struggles to his relationships, and kept his secrets locked away. One of his friends recounts a crazy night in Hollywood where they all bonded over their ties to Elvis. It's a tale filled with drama, heartbreak, and bizarre situations that feel almost too fantastical to be real. But that's what makes Hymns Blinds, at least then, so thrilling. They offered a glimpse into a world where reality and fiction blur. As the narrator puts it, this eternal order of friends have sworn to take their stories to the grave. But occasionally, pieces slip out, just enough to keep fans hungry for more. Now, various blinds that he covered on Elvis covered his relationship with Priscilla, obviously his inappropriate relationships with women, with girls, and even the details in this very, very long Mr. Hymn blind is really all details that can be pulled from articles, from newspapers, interviews, biographies, movies, documentaries that are out there, and then elaborated on. I think that this writer just did a lot of research and elaborated on it and turned it into a blind. But let's get into this writer. Who is Mr. Hymn? This elusive figure began haunting the pages of Crazy Days and Night, a mythical presence many believed was Robert Downey Jr. Yes, legit Robert Downey Jr. His blinds dripped with insider knowledge, lurking readers into salacious stories about Hollywood's A-list. But behind the curtain, the truth is far less glamorous, and Robert Downey Jr.'s publicist even spoke out about this in one of the first articles, I believe, that was actually written about Crazy Days and Nights. So Mr. Hymn, in reality, and I have all of the proof to back up every single thing that I'm saying, was a man named Tally Griffith from Virginia. Tally's world wasn't the silver screen. Though he had ties to the film industry, he was a producer, a filmmaker, a man whose creative ambitions took a dark turn as he spun gossip figures like Diana Jenkins and Hayden Panettiere, Drew Barrymore, and Natalie Wood. His blind painted stories of scandal, but as the layers peeled back, it became clear these tales were largely fiction. The revelation of Mr. Hymn's identity was pieced together by his own tragic death, which aligned with the sudden disappearance of his online persona. Griffith's former fiancée later confirmed not only his identity, but also revealed disturbing details about entanglements behind the scenes of Crazy Days and Nights. She knew back then that Auntie was John Nelson, married and involved in an affair with another podcaster, True Crime John, if anyone is familiar with his Patreon podcast. Like Auntie, Tally Griffith's personal life was riddled with questionable behavior. Allegations emerge of him targeting female patrons and fans. Why his blinds may have thrilled readers, including myself, the real life consequences for those around him were devastating. His untimely death of his unaliving was one chapter of a sordid story, but the ripples of his fabricated blinds continue to echo in Hollywood's gossip circles. When it comes to blinds, especially those from anonymous sources, it is so crucial to approach them with skepticism. The recent revelations about Tally Griffith, Mr. Him, who was pretending that it was for entertainment insiders all these years, including Robert Downey Jr., and John Nelson, aka NT Lawyer, really highlights the dangers of believing unchecked rumors. Many of the blinds were proven to be exaggerated or entirely fabricated and damaging reputations based on fiction. The anonymity of these sources shields them from accountability, leaving readers to navigate half-truths. Well, it did lead to no consequences. That was until Diana Jenkins, aka that former one-hit, not wonder, but that former one-hit Real Housewives of Beverly Hills housewife, sued him and won. But always take such claims with a grain of salt, as the full truth is often more elusive than the gossip suggests.
Ooh, what's happening in Beverly Hills? Denny Gossip, Pop Culture Expose.
Today, I am beyond excited to welcome someone who sees pop culture through an entirely unique lens. Nathalie Rogers. Nathalie is a gifted psychic, medium, and tarot card reader with a deep love for the energy and icons of pop culture's past. Her intuitive understanding of the world, combined with a fascination for the 1960s and 70s, makes her the perfect guest. So, as we dive into one of the most revolutionary times in history, we'll explore the legends of the era, the counterculture that still shapes our world today, and maybe even tap into some of the mysteries surrounding the king himself, Elvis Presley. So, welcome, Nathalie. It's going to be a magical conversation. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me. This is actually an honor. I have to say, I'm honored to be here. I'm one of your first guests on this brand new podcast. I love the concept behind your podcast as well. I love that you're diving deep into the blinds and you're looking at pop culture and the history and the legacy certain pop culture sort of moments and scandals and milestones have created, because there's just a lot, and I'm excited for your podcast. I'm excited for this journey that you're on, and thank you.
Of course, and thank you. And as I mentioned prior to us starting, for being so instrumental in me starting this journey. But before we dive into pop culture and all that fun stuff, do you want to take a moment to explain a little bit about yourself, Nathalie, and where everyone can find you?
Sure. So I'm a psychic medium, as you said at the intro. What that means is I'm able to predict the future, but here's the thing, I just want to clarify about this, because everything is made of energy. We're made of energy. Everything around us is made of energy. Everything is connected. The future is not set in stone. This is something that people don't realize. We as psychics are able to tap into let's say, the trend and in the direction that the energy goes. And we tap into that and we get insights regarding what things are, or how things are going to unfold and what's going to happen depending. And of course, it's also influenced as to what is happening now. I'm also a medium, which means that as a medium, I'm able to connect and to tune in to deceased loved ones, to spirits that are in the spirit world, and gain information or receive information through them, which I love to share with my clients. I love to share with my viewers on YouTube. And I also call myself a spiritual coach. That's mainly the title that people to know me as, because psychic medium comes with a spiritual coach. When they have private readings, you've had one, so you can attest insight that I get and coach in order for them to get rid of past trauma, past karma, or generational trauma, generational karma as well, and help them. And I'm their cheerleader. I'm people's cheerleader. This is pretty much what I see, because at the end of the day, I'm just tuning in. I'm just giving you what I'm getting and what I'm receiving. At the end of the day, all the work and all the changes that are happening in your life is because of you. Because after all, we do have free will and we can change the outcome of things. And if anyone's interested in what I do, you can visit my website, which is www.femtarot.com, and also on YouTube, because I'm on YouTube very often. I go live every week, sometimes twice a week, and I cover everything from true crime, pop culture, spirituality, astrology, you name it. And we have a beautiful community on YouTube. You're part of that community, and I'm really, really, really grateful for the love and the support that this community really gives to each other. It's not just towards me, but it's how the community helps each other.
Thank you, Natalie, for all of that. Very proud to be a part of your femme community. So let's dive into pop culture. What drew you to the world of pop culture, and how does your work as a psychic and medium play into your fascination with it?
Love the question. All right. So, fun fact, I grew up around pop culture. My mom, who is a psychic, but she's not a practicing psychic or a full time psychic, she just has psychic abilities, but she freaks out. Which is really funny, because she would be a great psychic, but whenever she taps into it, she freaks out, which is funny. But so my mom, fun fact, something that people don't know, and I'm sharing it here for the first time. So my mom was, or she's not anymore, but she was a socialite. She was very much around celebrities and socialites, and her background really allowed her for that, to be in those circles, if you will. So there was my mom always threw these parties, not like the Diddy parties. How to put it out there, because this is very relevant moment. So she threw parties. So I had celebrities and these like power people around us, and also my mom was also, she loved to want to read the gossip magazines and National Enquirer and Hello Magazine and all of those. So those magazines were always around the house, and she would always watch like reality TV, just anything like all of the gossipy celebrity style shows. So I grew up around pop culture, and we spoke about pop culture, and both of my parents, even though they're divorced, they're very much music lovers as well. So there was always music blasting either in the car or at home. So I grew up with music, especially with 70s rock, which I love the fact that we're talking about 70s music today, because I grew up with 70s rock. For instance, the Doobie Brothers, Fleetwood Mac, Grateful Dead, you name it, Led Zeppelin, just all of it, Pink Floyd. So this was my childhood. And so by default, and I just got into it. I was always into pop culture, and I was always into it. Now, to answer your question regarding my abilities and how they factor in, it's interesting because it's fun. For instance, I love to watch the Bravo shows, as you know, like Housewives and Summer House and all of that. So I do try hard to watch them as just like any regular viewer, right? Just I want to enjoy my show, get into the drama and all that. But sometimes, and I don't do this on purpose, I do tune in. I do tune in and I do get some insights regarding, let's say, if let's say Teresa is fighting with Dolores, which is an example from the New Jersey Housewives. I can pick up if that's fake, if that's dramatic, if there's something else behind it. So what I decided to do 5 years ago when I started YouTube, my YouTube channel was like, hey, why don't I share my insights with other people? There's so many Bravo commentators now on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. But I said, okay, I thought to myself, okay, it would be fun if I just put a twist to it, being a psychic, and just do readings around them and just share with people my thoughts and how I see things using my abilities as a psychic. So yeah, I tend to do that. I try not to, but I do. Sometimes I just want to enjoy the show. The worst part, Danielle, is I watch like traders or these types of shows, I'm sort of like going into psychic detective mode. And I'm like, I think this is the person who's going to win, or this is the trader, or this is that. Yeah, I'm wrong a lot of times because I cannot predict everything. Okay. It's impossible. No psychic out there can predict everything and be 100% accurate. But it's something that I enjoy doing, and I enjoy sharing all these insights with you guys. So yeah, that's how I got into it, and that's how it works with me.
It is crazy how much our upbringing can affect our love for things later on in life, but it's just nice to see it's come full circle with you that you have a career and most importantly, you have a talent. And you're combining your talent and your career and passion all into one. So really love it, Natalie. Now,
Thank
the
you.
1960s and 1970s were a time of great cultural upheaval, kind of like today and what we're going through with an upcoming election, too.
Mhm.
So, what do you think were some of the most defining moments of pop culture during that era, or that stands out as a last legacy or a lasting legacy?
I love that you said like today, like the 60s and the 70s remind us, or there are certain things or events that are happening now that are kind of correlated to what was happening back then. It's interesting that you say that because I pretty much feel the same way. I feel like it's almost like we're coming to full circle from the 60s to now. There's so many things happening now that if you look back to the 60s and 70s, you can see like parallels. For instance, we have, as you said, the elections. We had in the 60s, we had the assassination of JFK. There was an attempted assassination against Donald Trump, who's running for president
Mhm.
for the elections on the 5th of November. If that happens on the 5th of November, but that's a different discussion for another time. Just just saying.
Tune into
Um,
her channel to learn more about that.
Also, the interesting thing about the 60s and the 70s, there were so many scandals and so many things that were coming out during that time, and so many like sudden deaths of celebrities as well. We have Marilyn Monroe, we have, as I said, JFK, we've got Jim Morrison as well. That's another one, Elvis Presley. There's so many deaths. Okay. And now we're seeing in our times as well, these celebrities that are dying, and people are creating these sort of I don't want to use the word conspiracy theory because they're not a lot of times what is considered a conspiracy theory is not really a conspiracy theory. It's a theory, or it's not even a theory. I want to say it's a um for lack of a better word, which I can't find that word that I'm looking for, but it's sort of like it's like an idea that is put out there that has legs, meaning
Mhm.
it's not a theory, it's an idea that comes from something is attached to that theory in quotes, or idea, but it's not necessarily conspiracy. It means that it's just beyond the realm of understanding of people. So I hope I'm making sense. Meaning, for instance, there is the whole Elvis Presley thing, okay, where a lot of people they believe or they claim that Elvis Presley faked his death, and he's been he's been seen around in different countries or different cities, different areas since the time he died. The same goes for Tupac or Biggie or some of these big celebrities or these big artists that died. So I'm not saying that Elvis is alive. I do believe he's dead. But I understand that when you idolize certain people, certain celebrities or public figures, it is very hard for people to accept the untimely death or the ending or the demise of someone. So people want to they want to keep that legacy going by claiming that they're alive, right? But now what is happening, and going back to conspiracy theory, that comes from something. It's not just fiction. It's not a conspiracy. It's pretty much, let's say, a collective idea that's been put out there for a reason. The difference with the 60s and 70s to our times now is that a lot of these, in quotes, conspiracy theories or collective ideas that are out there seem to be true, seem to manifest right in front of our eyes, because we're a lot more ready to accept that the reality that we have around us is not, it's not something that is, let's say, real, but it's something that we've created. I hope I'm not, blowing people's minds here, but, give me a platform and I can talk about these things all day. But I want to get back to our topic, back to your question. So what were those? Some of the events was Jim Morrison's death, Elvis Presley's death, Marilyn Monroe's death. And unfortunately, some of these legacies from the 60s and 70s are connected to the death of public figures and these people that we all idolized or looked up to. There's also events or things that happen, such as the Manson killings, for instance. Okay, that's part of pop culture, and it became part of pop culture back in the 70s. And that's what I truly believe, the Manson killings is what created or what started this true crime fandom that exists today. What do you think about that?
No, I just had that epiphany right as you said that, so I actually have goosebumps right now. That is a very good point and a other good deep dive to go into.
You should
But
do that
sadly, I
one.
do think that spearheaded it, and then all the attention that he got from it, and then copycats just in sick minds wanting attention. You know, that's the speculation about what happened with the second attempt on Trump as well. They were saying that second attempt was maybe in regards to that, but who knows? But yeah, I definitely think that probably kickstarted it. And that was also around the time that the FBI was determining what serial killers were and everything and coming up with that coined word.
Exactly. And it became such a big thing because it happened in Hollywood, right? And it also involved someone who was famous. There were famous people. And that kind of like opened this Pandora's box. And, fast forward 30, 40 years later, and here we are. True crime is one of the biggest like when you look at YouTube, the most popular content with the highest viewership are gamers, are games, and true crime. And also
whether
the
or
true
not
crime
it's
communities.
whether or not it's a documentary or a series like Ryan Murphy is putting out, but that's another topic. Um,
Ooh.
Natalie, as a psychic medium, do you think that any of the energy of those culture icons from the 60s or 70s still resonate today and maybe in ways that we don't even realize?
Of course. Listen, it's even when you look at the Gen Zers and the alphas, right? The younger generation, they wouldn't know who, let's say, Merlin Manson, not Merlin Manson. I was going to say Merlin Monroe. Whoa. Okay. Merlin Monroe is, all right, or Elvis Presley. But we do, even though we didn't grow up, we weren't that generation where we listened or we played Elvis's music, for instance, but we knew, or the Beatles, but we knew who they were because our parents did.
Mhm.
So that kind of was passed down. But here's the interesting fact. This generation now, it's it's not as connected, even though, for instance, we grew up with Nirvana, right? Or Pearl Jam, the grunge era. Depends how old you are. But we all know who Duran Duran is, who Madonna is. We know their music. We connect to their music because, if you were born in the 70s or the 80s, you connect to this type of music and this type of culture. But now that a younger generation, though, because of your parents as well as what you would listen to. But now this younger generation, there is a massive disconnect to this type of music, to any music that was created before the Y2Ks. Like
Mhm.
I see it with my kids. My son asked me the other day who Madonna is because he saw TikTok and he was like, who Madonna? I looked at him, I was like, you don't know who Madonna is? Like, who birthed you? And he was like, why shouldn't I? But he's right. Even though I do like Madonna and I do listen to Madonna, not all the time, but I mean, it will play on the radio or it will play
Mhm.
on my Spotify list because it's a different era and a different culture. I really truly believe that the culture of today, the pop culture of today, even though there are parallels to the pop culture of the 60s and 70s, it's very different because it's very much centered around celebrities
Yeah,
and around stardom and around how many followers that person has. And nowadays, it's not even about the singers or the actors or the public
right.
figures. It's about the influencers, whatever that
Yeah,
means. It's a very broad definition of what an influencer is. So, like, there's the trad wives now, which is a whole thing on TikTok, and those are influencers. And
mhm.
all they do is just create these videos where they're traditionally, very demure, and very traditionally dressed, and they make everything from scratch for their families. And this is a huge thing. And they're influencers because they're actually influencing people and they're creating content for a big following. And I think I forgot what your question was because I went off the tangent. So apologies.
But that is okay. Just wondering how those from then still resonate today. So you definitely answered my question in regards to that. With your readings and your clients, by chance, do you ever get asked about other celebrities? And if so, who do you get asked about the most?
It's interesting. I don't get asked in a private setting. So if it's like a
Okay.
private session, but I get asked a lot on social media or on YouTube. I get that. And I do get like these people who will DM me on Instagram. And I
Mhm.
don't even know if they watch my channel or if they're part of my community. Maybe they came across a video and then but they will ask me, what's your opinion on this? Or what do you think about this conspiracy theory? Do you believe this? Or they will send me articles and they will ask me, what do you think of this? What does your intuition say about this? So I do get that a lot, but not in a private session.
Yeah.
Usually, when even if people book a psychic reading, because a psychic reading is different to a mediumship reading, because mediumship reading, I do connect to the other side. And deceased loved ones, where psychic is about, again, sharing insights about the future. I do get people where they're curious, like, is anyone with us? Or, do you feel my dad? Is my dad around me? So I get that, but never for celebrities, which is interesting. I do get, though, some private requests for true crime cases. And we're not talking about cold cases. We're talking about solved cases. We're talking about cold cases, meaning that
Gotcha.
people will ask me, oh, did you hear about this case? This little girl disappeared. She's alive, or was she kidnapped, or what happened to this little girl? So yeah, I get asked about that, but not about celebrities, because I guess they have that access through YouTube,
Yeah, no, totally.
or
And
they get
it's
that information.
best that they're making the most use of their time with you as
Mhm.
well. Now, Natalie, for the last year, I have been investigating none other than Auntie Lawyer behind crazy days and nights. And like you said, some conspiracy theories, which he puts out there, some of it, is based off of kernels of truth and then could be exaggerated. And especially when it comes to this time frame, he wrote a lot of blinds about various figures, whether or not it was Marilyn Monroe, but definitely that of Elvis Presley. There was one really long one written by an actual collaborator of his,
Mm.
who took their own life, a couple of years back or so. But it was from a gentleman who pretends to be for people in Hollywood, even though he wasn't. And I think it was probably a blind that he just took from interviews, articles, biographies already out there.
Mm.
And then there's others blinds about Elvis with Priscilla. One crazy blind about her being pushed with Polanski, arranged Elvis arranged
Mhm.
Polanski and Priscilla, which obviously we know Elvis had a problem with underage women. There's been plenty that has come out to prove
Mhm.
that. But thinking back to all of this and just the fact that he was an icon and all of the mystery and speculation around his death, what are your thoughts on the blinds or conspiracy theories that swirl around him?
There's so many, and I personally, as Natalie, don't understand why there is still this massive fascination, or this, not even fascination, obsession for Elvis Presley and his life, and so-called, in quotes, death. But I've done a reading on, not Elvis, but I did do a reading, I think it was last year or a year and a half ago. That was when, if you remember, when and um, Priscilla, and what's her mom's name? Not Priscilla, her daughter's name.
Riley? Is it
Riley, yeah.
right?
You remember there was the whole the whole thing about Graceland and the estate, etc., and
Yes.
they had some legal disputes around that, etc. So, and I did a little reading around them. I can confirm, according to my readings, that yeah, Elvis was very much drawn to the young women, to the young
Mhm.
girls, to the minors. Well, they are minors, but not like the 13-year-old, but like the 17, 16. But back then, it wasn't considered bad, which is crazy to me.
Yeah.
It wasn't illegal. It wasn't considered, it wasn't considered bad. It was actually, back then, the younger the the men wanted to go for the younger girls, because that kind of like proved their masculinity and their power, and it was just an ego boost, I guess, and it was totally acceptable back then. Anyhow, no, I don't believe, with the blinds generally, I just take a of truth in there. Depends on the blind. For instance, some of
Mhm.
the Meghan Markle blinds and Prince Harry, those I believe that they have a lot more than just a grain of truth. I do believe those are very targeted blinds, and they're blinds because they're leaking information to the public, and they're creating some kind of rumor mill. And this is because they're very litigious, as we know, the Sussexes. So that's one way of putting out information, which a lot of these content creators, YouTubers, podcasters, they do cover the royal family, take that information, and then they do the digging, and then they're able to get the information, put it out there. So with them, they use the blinds to make information accessible to the public without being liable for defamation or any kind of lawsuit. Regarding now Elvis, I truly believe this is kind of like using Elvis's legacy and name for clout.
Mm-hmm.
That's my opinion. And we know, and I mean, you've done a lot of work on this, and you've done a lot of, you and Giorgio says are the detectives of the internet. Okay. When
Well,
it comes
thank you
to
for putting me in the same group as him, because I feel like he is a master at it. So thank you.
100% he is, but so are you, because you go deep as well. Because I've noticed that you like to dig into the information and really go for it, and you're careful. And that's the most important thing, is being careful that the information that you receive or you find,
Mm-hmm.
that you do research on that as well, and make sure that that information is accurate and correct before you put it out there. And I know that you do that.
Definitely.
So, yeah, so with NT, we know that a lot of stuff, it's just things to stir up drama, to create things. And I don't know, there's always some kind of agenda, and I don't know what his agenda is, but the Elvis Presley stuff is like, I would just 5% of what is out there, I would say, is true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was kind of my feeling as well. And I definitely believe he has blinds that are submitted to him, but I do just feel like majority of it is research and or made up by him and some of his counterparts of a shady inner circle, potentially. But would you at all, Natalie, be willing to pull a couple of cards
Sure.
at all on what the future? There's just been a lot of articles that have come out this year about John Nelson revealing his identity as NT lawyer and also some of his behaviors. Hopefully there will be more to come in a future documentary. Things are hopefully going to progress with that, because he lost in court to his ex. But despite all of that and his credibility being questioned, the spread of his information does not seem to stop. So I'm just really curious what you think what you see the future of John Nelson being, or what is his motivation?
That's a good question. What is motivation? I'm going to pull the cards, and then I want to ask you. Actually, I'm going to ask you this while I'm shuffling and pulling a card. But because I heard his voice for the first time, I think it was on Kinsley. Do you know
when you saw that Meet Me in the Lake was happening under Archwell Productions?
I guess because it's a story that kind of bears a passing resemblance to their own lives.
Right.
And it's new. I think the fact that, Meet Me at the Lake or whatever, I think it was May of this year, it was when it was published. And, it's near Toronto. That's where it's set anyway, where Meghan was living during Suits and stuff like that. They weren't coming up with anything good. And so this is a chance, right? This is your chance. Netflix is throwing the dice and said, okay, go ahead. Now, to give you like a comparison, they paid all these rights for the book.
Kinsley. Do you know Kinsley? She covers a lot of the royal stuff.
Yes.
She's based in LA, but she also works with a lot of the British journalists as well. She's appeared on ITV, radio shows, podcasts, etc. And it's very, when I hear someone's voice or when I look at them, I can pick up their energy. Or when I look at their photo, for instance, I can pick up some of their energy. And You know what I was thinking when I was hearing his voice? And we were talking about Meghan Markle stuff, and he was talking as if he's some kind of expert and he has this inside information.
Mm-hmm.
My question to you is like, where does like what makes him an expert? Like, where does he get his information? Because when I was hearing his voice, I was like, this guy, I'm gonna put it out there. I'm sure I'm gonna get some hate for it. I don't care, you know me. But he reminds me, Gina Ronald Richards. He's on Twitter and yeah,
Yes, I do. Yep.
yeah.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Same
Totally
energy,
same energy.
girl.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So I was
Yeah.
like goosebumps. I was like, ugh.
Yeah, I agree. First of all, Kinsey did collaborate with him before in the past, but when she found out, she did call him out for it, and I don't think
Oh,
she
she did?
collaborates with him anymore. Oh yeah, I think
Oh.
even on TMZ or on a on an actual broadcast of something. I have a clip of it. She's
Oh.
like, "Oh, that NT lawyer." No, she called him out for it.
Ah.
And
The nature of Princess Catherine's illness, the nature of what's going on between Prince William and the Princess of Wales in their marriage, all of those sorts of things. It's pretty vile stuff, some of it.
Well, let me just tell you, okay, that he got caught cheating on his wife. NT Lawyer has been outed here in the States because he cheated on his wife and then filed a restraining order on his girlfriend like minutes after he exited her house. So he's like, bye, love you, leaves his girlfriend's house, files a restraining order on her, and now she's doing a podcast where she's completely outing him. We're not even sure he's a real entertainment lawyer.
Tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies. Tell me lies, tell me lies. Oh no, no, you can't disguise.
in his cheating ways. But my understanding from what he told his ex-girlfriend is
Yeah.
sometimes he does get blinds. Sometimes it is research, but a lot of it is just like a general made up lie story that could
Yeah.
relate to anything. Like this A-list starlet did this, and that. And then sooner or later, especially after 2 decades worth of blinds, a story might come out in the news that you can pin to that. So my understanding, and this is all allegedly,
Mm-hmm.
that is how it has been done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So to answer your question as well, let me just say NT is not working alone. I don't know if you're aware of that. So I see two people. Does he have a wife or girlfriend?
He has a wife who is actually
Okay.
a future fan he met through Facebook that he left his one wife through.
Ooh.
Allegedly, she has pretended to be one of the main contributors of the site, Mr. X, but I imagine she still writes blinds for him that are not under that pseudonym. He collaborates with another podcaster called True Crime Jen, who he has been in a relationship with on and off since at least 2018.
Okay.
And I think that they have potentially contributed as well. So those could be the two women. I'm not sure.
Lines behind NT. Okay, so two things. A, he loves doing this. I feel a cloud. I mean, he gets access, releasing blinds and being NT, the lawyer, the blind, whatever. He has access to certain people and certain information, and that's why this is why it all started. This is why it all started. It started because he truly believed that, I don't know if he's even a practicing lawyer. This is not what I'm feeling right now. So I don't even know if he's practicing.
From my
Just saying.
research, he's not practicing, and
That's what I'm getting, that he's not practicing.
lawyers and even the judge in his most recent court case has questioned that too.
Okay. Because when he started off, how long ago did he start off out of curiosity? When did he start putting out those blinds?
Around 2008, 2 years after he became a lawyer.
It's been a while.
Yeah. Almost 2
Okay.
decades.
Okay, it got frozen for a minute. So it's been a while for him doing it. So let me give you what motivated him. Okay, I'll tell you that. So for him, it was inspiration. He had this idea, this epiphany, because he truly believed that by starting this whole blinds thing, that he was able to help his case, his clients. It would also put his foot in the door of celebrities and the celebrity world and having access to celebrities. And he also, this way, he was opening a door to be able to receive information and create contacts and have, let's say in quotes, informants out there. This is how it all started and why it all started. I don't even feel that or believe that he lives in the US. He's moved out. He's not living in the US. So, or mainland. He could be in the US, it's in Hawaii, but I don't feel it. I feel he's out of the country and he lives out of the country. I see that. And also he loves the attention. He's someone, I'm telling you, he gives me Ronald Richards kind of vibe because Ronald Richards loves the limelight and the attention. And so does he. So that was his motivation. And if I could sort of label what he does or why he does it, I would say he is how I'm going to say this. He's someone who he's creating his own microcosmos, his little world, because he wants to be able to have a community around him that would not question the information and the blinds that he puts out there. And he reached a point at some point, I believe, that people did believe the blinds, did really took as gospel some of those blinds that were out there. And that's what he wanted to create, because in that way he had more power and he was able to kind of like manipulate the news and manipulate things. And he's also, by the way, I said there's two of them. I also see a third one. There's a man. And I feel that he's not the one who writes the blinds or who's involved in the blinds, but this man benefits somehow through the stirring up drama that some of those blinds create. I hope that makes sense. But so basically there are three people kind of like involved in this.
Would you know if that third person has anything to do with documentaries?
Let me see. The third person is definitely, yeah, could be possibly because it's someone who does have contacts and it has been, I'm not sure if he's still, but it has been in the movie industry or in this industry, the film industry and entertainment industry in general, not necessarily someone too. You're smiling.
Okay.
You know something. You know something.
I do, but I'm kind of afraid to say who
Okay.
I think it is. I think it is someone who actually produced one of the biggest child Hollywood abuse documentaries
Oh,
years ago. That has been mine and many other speculations for years.
interesting. He came up as the emperor, just pulled the card for this third guy. This is the emperor. So definitely someone who has access. He has some kind of power.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not, he's not Scorsese or anything like that. He's
Oh
not
yeah,
like
no,
the Ryan
definitely.
Murphy or
He
anything like that.
wishes, yes, but no.
But he does have access to certain people and he does have some kind of influence, at least in his circle of documentarists or filmmakers out there. Someone very calculating as well. I'm getting very strategic and calculating. So this is like a team effort here.
Mhm.
This is a team effort. Hmm. They do. You know what just came through, Daniel? I'm sure you probably picked up on this. I also feel that celebrities do pay NT and his team
Mhm.
for certain information to come out, or dissing other artists, for to diss others, or to throw shade to others, or create some kind of drama around themselves so they can stay relevant. So yeah, he makes money from this. He does benefit from this,
Yeah, I
allegedly.
wouldn't be surprised. Do
And
you
it feels like
go
he's
ahead.
slowed. Sorry for interrupting. I was going to say
No, go
last
ahead.
thing. I do feel like he's slowed down regarding his blinds. I don't know. That's kind of slowed down, but he's not planning to stop anytime soon. If he doesn't do it, someone else will for him. Just saying.
Yeah, I think he's still doing his blinds, and now he's more on YouTube and other social platforms, I think trying to get it out more because he has lost a lot of subscribers
I thought you were
because
going
of
to say he
everything
lost a
that's
lot of
going on.
weight. I don't know why.
No, no, that's the
No,
opposite.
I haven't seen him. I've never seen what he looks like.
No,
But
the last he was at court, he was very bloated and disheveled is the word on the street.
do you know why he's bloated? I was going to say that. I also picked up about him. Allegedly, this is my opinion for entertainment purposes only.
I don't know anything of those are details I don't know, but
This is
yeah.
what comes through me being a psychic and
I
picking
wouldn't
up
be
the energy.
surprised with
This is
all the
not
pressure
fact.
too, but may I ask you one last question in regards to this? And you kind of did answer it. Do we ever see there being an end to the Crazy Days and Nights website?
It will die down. Yeah, it will. Because there's going to be a massive shift on social media and influencers and content creation, and everything in 2 years from now. This is something I'm planning to talk about on a members only on YouTube, where I want to share some stuff. But yeah, that will die down because as we're seeing now with everything going down with Diddy, um, a lot of a lot of celebrities are going down, not necessarily related to Diddy or parties
Mhm.
or minors or anything like that, but a lot of celebrities are going down, and this whole world is coming crashing down. So it will take the blinds with it down, and anything around, because people are now realizing that celebrities and these icons and people that we all used to look up to when we're children, or even a few years ago, that's a dream that completely shattered, because at the end of the day, they're not superhuman, they're not Marvel superheroes.
Yeah.
These are flawed human beings that most of them have been abused and exploited by the industry and by the very powerful people that are ruling and governing this industry. So we're going to be seeing a lot of that. And anyone who's been working in the dark, with the darkness, in the shadows, all of these people are going to be exposed, and they're going to be very much humiliated. That's one, it's a strong word, but it's one that's coming through my guides. And so just watch this space, any kind of space. I mean, you're going to be seeing it happening very, very soon. Already the snowball effect with Diddy has already started. So
Right.
yeah, blinds are going to die because people are people don't care, and people will not care anymore. And people will not, want to, because the fun part about the blinds is guessing, right? Guessing, is this about this person, and who do you think leaked it, and why is this out now, and blah blah blah. That creates some kind of, like, how I'm going to say it, it creates some kind of mystique and mystery
Mhm.
and fascination around it. But people are after the stuff that's going to come out soon, and what's happening in the entertainment industry, music industry, political scene. people are going to be so disgusted and, there's going to be such an aversion to all that
Right.
all that is coming crashing down. So yeah,
Well,
I
that's
give
good
it
to
another 2
know.
years.
That's good to know because blinds don't need to be out there. There is enough research that can be done to put out all of these aspects in a thoughtful, educational way, which is the reason why I think certain TikTokers are turning into influencers because
Mhm.
of the work and the research that they are doing to really connect the dots, but provide the proof to back it up.
Mhm.
And maybe if he took that approach years ago, he would have been in a different spot, but his ego would not allow him to.
Nope.
So,
And you know what? Who needs blinds when you have Reddit? You can find everything on Reddit now. Kempire
yeah.
makes fun of me because I'm always like, "Did you see what I heard on? Did you see, let me share with you what I heard on or what I read on Reddit or look at this." And he makes fun of me. But honestly, Reddit is the new X, the new blinds, the new
Well, I think
everything.
that's where he gets blinds too from as well, is from
I'm sure
Reddit.
he does. I'm sure he
Definitely.
does.
Definitely. But Natalie, thank you so much for your time today. I
Thank you.
really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And all that is a wrap on today's episode. We've covered the unforgettable pop culture moments of the 1960s and 1970s, from the rise of counterculture to the wild, larger than life blinds surrounding Elvis Presley. A huge thank you to my amazing guest, Femme Tarot.Nathalie, for joining and bringing all the juicy insights. Again, thank you, Natalie.
Thank you.
Tune into the buzz, it's the talk of the day. From Bravo shows to the latest celeb spree, we've got the tea, come sip it with me. Danny Goss and the girl, pop culture expose. We're spilling all the secrets every